You know, every now and then, I find myself thinking back to when we were kids. Those weekends when mom and dad would head out of town and leave us in the care of Uncle Ron. Uncle Ron had been single his whole life, never married, no kids of his own. But he adored us. He always seemed genuinely happy to spend time with us, and we loved having him around. There was something comforting about his presence. Back then, anyway. One Friday night stands out in particular. It was the same night our parents left for another weekend getaway. Outside, a monster snowstorm was coming down hard, the kind that turns everything white and muffles the world in silence. Inside, the five of us were huddled together on the living room floor. Me, my two brothers, my older sister, and Uncle Ron. We were watching Titanic on VHS, the snowstorm raging on the other side of the windows. Some parts of that night I remember with unnerving clarity, while others, strangely, feel like they've been erased from my mind. Like there's just static where memory should be. But one thing I do remember, maybe because it startled us all, was when the power flickered out for a moment. Just a brief blackout. The screen went dark, and the hum of the heater stopped cold. We all froze in place. Then, just as quickly as it had gone out, the lights snapped back on. The movie hadn't fared so well, though. We had to fumble around with the VCR, manually rewinding and fast-forwarding until we found our spot again. There was something eerie about the silence during that reset. The wind was howling outside, and for a few minutes, we were completely focused on that clunky VCR. Eventually, the movie resumed, and we settled back in. Not long after, Uncle Ron dozed off in his recliner. His head slumped to the side, mouth slightly open, breathing steady. He looked peaceful. We let him sleep. The rest of us kept watching. The movie had reached the part where Rose was running through the flooded corridors, holding an axe, frantic, soaked, desperate, as she rushed back to the room where Jack was still trapped. That's the last moment I remember feeling normal. One of my brothers had just come back from the bathroom when, for whatever reason, he decided to step outside. Maybe it was just to look at the snow. We never really asked. But when he came back in, he was yelling, his voice loud and urgent. "You guys gotta come look at this!" Starved for something, anything more exciting than a 3-hour movie in a snowstorm, the three of us jumped to our feet and ran toward the back door to see what the fuss was about. That's when we saw them. Footprints. They were fresh and deeply pressed into the untouched blanket of snow just outside the back door. But what made it so strange, so instantly wrong, was their direction. They started right at the back door, then curved toward the living room window, and then turned sharply away, heading off into the yard and vanishing toward the tree line. For a few moments, we just stared, none of us saying a word. Then my brother spoke again, quieter this time. I think someone tried the doorknob." His voice cracked slightly. "Like when I was outside, I heard it twist." That sent our sister over the edge. Even though she was the oldest, 3 years older than the rest of us, she bolted back inside, pale and trembling, muttering to herself, and practically on the verge of a panic attack. But for me and my brothers, strangely, it had the opposite effect. Instead of fear, we felt this weird rush, a surge of excitement, like we were in the middle of something mysterious, something worth exploring. That childish thrill drowned out common sense. We wanted to follow the footprints. Our sister caught wind of what we were planning as she saw us tugging on our coats and stomping into our boots. Her voice cut through the hallway, sharp with panic. "If you guys go out there, I'm waking up Uncle Ron." But I managed to talk her down. "Come on, it'll be fun," I told her, trying to sound calm, even though my heart was hammering. "We're not going far. We'll stay together. We'll be right back." She didn't like it. She didn't believe me. But eventually, she gave up arguing and went back into the living room, the glow of the TV flickering across her face as she sat down to finish the movie without us. And just like that, we slipped outside. The moment the door closed behind us, we were hit by the sting of the cold. The snowstorm was worse than it looked from inside. Thick, heavy flakes tumbling through the air, swirling in every direction. The wind howled low, curling between the trees like it was whispering something we couldn't quite hear. But we were too focused to care. We marched toward the tracks, those strange, solitary footprints already starting to fade beneath the falling snow. And we followed them. Deeper into the night. The footprints led us straight into the woods behind the house, where the wind seemed to die down and the snow fell more gently through the gaps in the tree branches. The deeper we went, the deeper the prints became, pressing firmly into the ground, as if whoever made them had been walking heavier, or more recently. We weren't sure if it was because the snow wasn't falling as thick under the trees, or if it meant the tracks were fresher. Either way, we kept going. There was something hypnotic about it, following those footprints in the silence, the soft crunch of snow under our boots, the world around us swallowed by frost and stillness. Time felt like it blurred. We had no idea how long we'd been walking before we finally saw where the trail ended. A cabin. A small, weathered structure tucked deep in the woods like it had been trying to hide. Its roof sagged under the weight of the snow. The walls were dark, worn, barely visible against the blackness of the trees. There were no lights on inside, no glow from the windows. Just a cold, silent shape squatting in the snow. The footprints led right to the front door. We didn't dare approach it. Instead, we crept toward the nearest window, shivering more from nerves than from the cold. We leaned in, peering into the glass, only to realize it wasn't glass at all. Just a screen. It gave the window an even more unsettling look, like the cabin had eyes but no protection. We squinted, trying to see inside, but it was pitch black. Nothing moved, nothing breathed, just a thick, shapeless darkness pressing against the mesh. Then we heard it. 2 deep, dull thumps from inside the cabin. The sound of something heavy, shifting, sliding across the floor. We froze. Not a single one of us dared breathe. We stared into that dark screen, hearts pounding in our ears, waiting to see anything. But nothing came into view. And then my brother screamed. He pointed behind us with a trembling hand, his voice barely forming the words. We spun around just in time to see it. A head, sticking out from another window on the far side of the cabin. There were no features, No eyes, no mouth, just the faintest suggestion of a face lost in shadow. It was like the darkness had pulled itself together and watched us. Then it disappeared, vanished from view, just as we heard it. Rapid thumping, heavy footsteps pounding across the wooden floor inside the cabin, coming faster and faster. And then the front door burst open. We didn't wait to see what came through. We screamed louder than we ever had in our lives and tore off into the woods, the three of us stumbling over each other in blind panic, tripping through snowdrifts, trying desperately to retrace the footprints back the way we came. I don't think we were chased, at least not that we could tell. But we didn't stop running until the cabin was far behind us, until the woods opened back up into our backyard, and our house finally came into view, its windows glowing warm and safe like a lighthouse in the storm. We didn't sleep that night. The next day, once the sun was up and the fear had faded just enough, we decided to go back. We even brought our own Karan and hiking gear, convinced that in daylight we'd find it easily. But we couldn't. We searched for hours, every trail, every tree line. Nothing. No footprints, no disturbed snow, and no sign of the cabin. It was like the forest had swallowed it whole. To this day, we still live in that same house. We've explored those woods dozens of times over the years, out of curiosity, or maybe something deeper, a need to prove it happened. But we've never found that cabin again, not once. And the creepiest part? It's not on any map, not even on Google Earth. If it weren't for the fact that I was with my two brothers that night, I think I'd start to wonder if it ever happened at all. A few of my close friends, who I'll refer to as S and J, joined me for a laid-back camping trip near Blue Mountain National Park. Nothing fancy, no serious hiking plans, just three guys heading into the woods with a tent, a cooler full of beer, and the simple goal of kicking back and unwinding. We found a spot near this small, still pond that looked like something straight out of a painting. The surface was glassy, barely rippling, with trees curving over the water like they were leaning in to listen. It just felt peaceful, cool, like the perfect place to chill for the weekend. That was the whole point of the trip. Crack open some drinks, talk trash about our friends who didn't come, and vibe to whatever playlist S had queued up on the speaker. I was halfway through my second Budweiser, laughing way too hard at some dumb story Jay was telling, when the mood suddenly shifted. S leaned forward from his camp chair and reached over to the speaker. Without saying a word, he turned the volume all the way down. Then he held a finger to his lips and nodded toward the pond. "Shh, you guys see that?" he whispered. Jay and I turned to look. The fire cast a soft, flickering orange light across the pond, just enough to illuminate a thin sliver of water and the silhouettes of trees behind it. But even squinting, I couldn't tell what S was seeing. "There's something in the water," S murmured. His voice was low, tight. It didn't sound like he was joking. I stood up and ducked into the tent, rummaging through my backpack until I found the flashlight. When I stepped back out, S's voice sharpened. "Don't," he warned.
but I clicked it on anyway, the beam slicing through the darkness as I aimed it toward the pond. The light cut across the water, reflecting off the surface in silver ripples, but there was nothing there. No figure, no movement, just the calm pond. Until we heard it. Splash. A soft, unmistakable sound, like something heavy had stepped into the water. Not a fish, not a bird. It was deeper, slower, the distinct slosh of something walking. I immediately turned off the flashlight, my pulse hammering in my ears. The beam hadn't shown us anything, but the sound had changed everything. I looked at S and J. Both of them were staring straight ahead, their faces twisted into uneasy grimaces, like they were holding their breath, trying to decide if we were all just freaking ourselves out, or if this was something real. I swallowed hard and muttered to S, "Kill the speaker completely." He nodded and shut it off. And then the three of us just sat there, silent now, the buzz of alcohol quickly giving way to a tense, prickling awareness. No more jokes, no more music. We didn't speak. We just listened. To the dark. To the water. To whatever might still be out there, moving just beyond the edge of the firelight. About an hour passed. During that time, nothing happened. No more strange sounds from the pond, no rustling in the woods, no signs of movement. Just the steady crackle of the fire, the occasional chirp of distant insects, and the quiet whisper of wind through the trees. Eventually, the tension began to fade. We cracked a few more jokes. Jay found a leftover beer in the cooler. Everything slowly drifted back to normal. That strange moment by the pond, whatever it was, started to feel like one of those creepy but ultimately harmless things that happen when you're drunk in the woods. After a while, I crawled into my tent, zipped it shut, and settled into my sleeping bag. S and J disappeared into their shared tent across the clearing. The last thing I heard was a faint laugh from one of them, before silence took over. But being alone has a way of changing things. Lying there in the dark, my mind drifted back to earlier, S whispering that something was in the water. The way he said it, the way he looked. He never told us what he saw. He didn't say if it looked human or animal or something else. And now, without their voices or the distraction of music and firelight, my thoughts began spiraling. Every snap of a twig, every faint gust of wind brushing the tent fabric made my senses spike. I was on high alert. And when your hearing sharpens like that, when you're in that edge of fight or flight state, you notice everything. That's when I heard something. A noise. Low, distant, coming from the woods. I sat up slowly. There's something about sitting upright that always feels like it helps you concentrate. You feel more in control, more prepared, even though, deep down, you know you're not. I held my breath. I needed to hear it again. Just one more sound to know I wasn't imagining things. Then it came. Crunch. The sound of something stepping on forest floor. Closer this time. Not a branch falling, not wind through the trees. A footstep. Whether it was a human foot or an animal's, I couldn't yet tell. But it was deliberate. A clear, weighty shift of pressure on soil and leaves. I froze, muscles tight, ears straining. And then I heard it again. Another footstep. This one closer. Too close. The air inside the tent seemed to tighten around me. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. But I still caught it. One final footstep. Heavy. Right outside the tent. So close I could feel the vibration in the ground. With my heart pounding in my throat, I fumbled for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly, it took me a few tries just to unlock the screen. I opened a message to S and quickly typed, but I didn't get to finish. Because that's when it happened. A scream, not from one of us, ripped through the night. It wasn't just loud. It was shattering. A gut-wrenching, blood-curdling howl that tore straight through the air like a blade. It came from somewhere nearby. Too close, but I couldn't tell exactly where. The sound seemed to echo in all directions, bouncing off the trees, collapsing every ounce of courage I had left. I couldn't even tell if it was the scream of a man or a woman. It was deep enough to maybe be a man, but not so deep that it couldn't have come from a woman either. It was in that terrifying in-between, unnatural, wrong, something off. The scream lasted maybe 5 seconds, and then nothing. No movement, no rustling, no voice. Just complete, paralyzing silence. I sat there in the dark, frozen, with my fingers still hovering over my phone, unsure if I should crawl out of the tent, call for S and J, or just stay exactly where I was and pray it went away. Dude, we have to run. A few agonizing seconds passed before S responded. What was that? I didn't know how to answer. I didn't even know what that was. My mind was racing. Do we run into the woods and risk getting separated? Stay put and hope it doesn't come closer? Before I could decide, another message from S lit up the screen. Coast is clear. Run for the car. That was all I needed. I grabbed the car keys from my bag with shaking hands, reached for the zipper on the tent, and slowly pulled it open, praying the sound wouldn't draw anything's attention. Then I bolted. The cold slapped me in the face the second I stepped outside. I didn't look around, didn't stop to check for S or J. I just ran. The car was about 30 seconds away. Felt like 30 miles. My feet were slipping in the frost, breath burning in my chest. But I didn't stop. Not until I was inside, doors locked, hands gripping the steering wheel, even though I wasn't driving. S and J made it back too. We didn't talk much, just sat in the dark car all night, eyes flicking toward the trees every time we thought we heard something move. At dawn, we returned to the campsite for our gear. Everything was still there, untouched, as if nothing had ever happened, as if the night hadn't nearly shattered us. But something had happened, something real. To this day, we still have no idea who or what was at our camp that night. We don't talk about it much anymore. We're just grateful we got out, alive. Skipping most of the backstory, I'll just say this. I was out walking through the woods one afternoon during a light drizzle. Nothing dramatic at first, just me and my gear. I had my backpack slung over my shoulder with the essentials, a spare pair of pants, a flashlight, a tripod, my camera, and a couple of granola bars. I'm a photographer and video editor, and I'd planned to capture some footage of the forest in the rain. Shots of the trees dripping, mist curling through the branches, maybe some slow-motion video of the river under overcast skies, that kind of thing. Peaceful, atmospheric. But things didn't go as planned. Long story short, I got lost. Somewhere between chasing better lighting and trying to find the perfect angle by the river, I wandered off my mental map and couldn't find my way back. At first, I thought it was no big deal. I'd retrace my steps, maybe use the river as a guide. But the longer I searched for the trail back to my car, the more panic started to creep in. I'm not exaggerating when I say it became the worst day of my life. I was angry, stressed, spiraling into frustration. At one point, I was yelling at myself out loud, just screaming into the trees in pure frustration, my voice swallowed up by the forest. I wanted out. I just wanted to find the car. About an hour after I realized I was lost, something changed. I started picking up on noises around me, not all at once, but isolated, like echoes. The same sound, over and over, but coming from different directions. It was footsteps. That much was undeniable. Slow, deliberate crunches on wet leaves, twigs cracking under weight. I froze, listening hard, hoping to pinpoint the direction. My first thought was a bear. Maybe it had been stalking me without me noticing. I've heard stories, how they'll tail you quietly, waiting. That idea alone had my adrenaline pumping. So I stopped moving, forced myself to breathe quietly, and tried to silence my own footsteps so I could hear better. I wanted to know where it was, what it was. And then I heard it again, behind me. I whipped my head around as fast as I could. That's when I saw it. Not a bear. Not an animal. A person. Half a person, to be exact. Just the right side of a human figure. An arm, shoulder, part of a torso, slipping quickly behind a thick tree trunk. Gone before I could get a proper look. They had been watching me. But instead of shouting or confronting them, I did what I still believe was the smart move. I walked away, quickly, casually. I forced myself to act like I hadn't seen them, like I was oblivious. Inside, though, I was unraveling. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to punch through my ribs. Every step felt heavier, more frantic, and it was getting darker with each passing minute. The trees were growing shadowed, the rain still misting down in a slow, steady drizzle, but that didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that something was out there, and I wasn't alone. I must have checked my phone every 10 seconds, hoping for a signal, anything. Finally, a single bar popped up. I stopped walking immediately, wiping rainwater off the screen with the sleeve of my jacket. My fingers were damp and shaking, but I managed to open the map app. The first thing I looked for was the nearest road. And there it was, close, really close, just a few 100 feet away through the trees. I actually let out a breath. Not just relief, it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in over an hour. My chest loosened. For the first time since getting lost, I felt like I had an exit. Then, I heard them again. Footsteps. Not far. Closer. I turned instinctively, and there he was. The man. And I know, just seeing a man in the woods doesn't sound terrifying on paper. Just sketchy, creepy at worst. But I'm telling you, it wasn't the idea of a man in the forest that scared me. It was him. He was only visible for a split second, just long enough to catch a clear glimpse before he ducked behind another tree. Like he thought I hadn't seen him. Like he believed if he moved fast enough, he could stay hidden. But I saw him. And what I saw chilled me to the core. He was huge, tall, easily over 6 feet, with a stocky, slightly overweight build. He wore jeans and a dark blue jacket with the hood up, rain soaking into the fabric. The jacket was half unzipped, revealing a plain white shirt underneath. He wore glasses too, though I only caught the briefest glint off the lenses before he disappeared behind the bark. He was standing just 15 feet away. Far too close. And even with the steady patter of a million raindrops hitting the leaves around us, I heard it. Now. One single word, whispered, low and raspy, but clear enough to cut through the downpour and lodge itself in my brain like a splinter. I ran. No more pretending, no more playing it cool, no more hoping this would pass if I just kept moving. I ran. Blindly, carelessly, panic pushing me forward like a tidal wave. I crashed through low-hanging branches, stumbled over roots and rocks, heart slamming in my chest so hard I could barely breathe. I was seconds away from a full-blown panic attack, and I knew it. But then, thank God, I found the road. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I ran down the slick asphalt until my legs burned, until I was sure I had put enough distance between me and that thing, that man, that he'd never catch up. Eventually, I slowed to a walk, soaked through, breath ragged, my limbs numb with cold and adrenaline. And then, finally, a miracle. Headlights. A car. I flagged it down like my life depended on it, and a middle-aged guy pulled over without hesitation. He asked if I was okay. I nodded quickly, climbed in, and simply told him I got lost in the woods while taking pictures. He didn't ask many questions, just drove. And I didn't offer anything more. Because honestly, I didn't even know what I would say. He dropped me off near where my car was parked, gave a small wave, and drove off like it was any other day. I got into my own car, started the engine, and began the 30-minute drive back home, soaking wet, hands trembling on the wheel, mind racing. The entire ride, I just kept thinking about what I saw, about what almost happened, and about how close I came to something I still don't have the words for.